Israel is bracing for a possible direct attack by Iran in retaliation for a strike that killed several military officers in Iran's embassy in Syria. U.S. President Joe Biden says that attack could happen sooner rather than later. To help us break down the situation in the Middle East, we're joined by Sean McFate, who's an expert on national security and foreign policy, an acclaimed author and professor of national defense strategy at Syracuse University. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so Israel hasn't officially claimed responsibility for attacking the consulate, but Iran wants revenge. And this would mark a serious escalation in the war in the Middle East. How did these two nations get here, and do you think Iran will retaliate?
Well, this has been a long time coming. Israel and Iran have been basically at each other's throats since the early 1980s, when Iran created Hezbollah in Lebanon to defeat Israel. And Israel has had a long strategy of using proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis in Yemen to attack Israel. And in response, Israel has attacked back, but it's always been in the shadows. And for the last 10 years, Iran and Israel have been fighting each other across Syria in the shadow war. And this is really the first time we've seen the shadow war bubble up into plain daylight. And it's one of the most dangerous times between Israel and Iran in recent history. And yes, I do think Iran will counterattack Israel.
Now, the possibility of an attack has several countries, including Canada and the U.S., issuing some kind of travel warning to Israel. Joe Biden has been vocal, telling Iran to stand down, but at the same time, the U.S. has been critical of Israel's response in Gaza. How do you see the U.S. responding should this attack occur?
I think the U.S. is going to rally around Israel, despite its many differences between the Biden administration and Netanyahu's ultra-conservative right-wing party. I do think that there will be a unified response. However, it depends on what kind of attack Iran launches. So if Iran launches a missile that goes from Iran and hits Israel's territory, that would be the most provocative attack. However, they could also strike maybe an Israeli embassy elsewhere, or they can strike Israeli units. This morning, they just took out a freighter in the Straits of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf that has ties to Israel. So we don't know exactly what the attack will look like, but it will be on what they call, Iran has promised will be on Israel's sovereign territory, but embassies are also sovereign territory. So it could be an Israeli embassy in Turkey or something.
All right, and as we mentioned, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing increasing international pressure to provide further aid to people in Gaza, but he's also facing pressure from his own people. Should this tension with Iran escalate, how do you see Netanyahu responding?
Netanyahu has always had a history of when he gets in political trouble, he likes to rally the flag around him by pointing to an external enemy. Usually it's Hamas or Hezbollah, but this would be his ultimate enemy. Pointing to Iran and saying, "Look, I'm your best bet. I can take on Iran. I have a history of doing it." So he will utilize this crisis to good use, and he will try to rally Israel around him. Will he be successful? I think he'll be partially successful, but there's a lot of internal tensions within Israel as well.
All right, Sean McFate, national security and foreign policy expert and professor of national defense strategy at Syracuse University. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joe.